The fire at the center of the Apache camp burned low, its embers glowing like watchful eyes as the night thickened around the circle of teepees, and every man who sat there felt the weight of what had just been spoken pressing against his chest like a stone. The rancher's words, cold, confident, and carried on a tone that did not tremble, still hung in the air. 1,000 horses for one night with your wife. It was not lust alone that had driven the offer. It was power, the kind of power a man believed money and land gave him over those he considered less than himself. The rancher stood tall beside his armed escorts, boots polished, hat tilted back, his gaze steady as if he had merely proposed a trade of cattle, not an insult that cut to the bone of Apache honor. Chief Nantan, gray-haired and battle-scarred, did not answer immediately. His silence was more frightening than anger. Among the Apache, words spoken too quickly were arrows shot without aim. And this was a moment that demanded patience sharper than any blade. Around him, warriors clenched their fists, jaws tight, eyes burning with a fury they struggled to contain, because to strike now would be to spill blood without purpose, and Apache blood was never spilled without reason. The rancher mistook this silence for weakness, a fatal error, and allowed himself a thin smile, already imagining the humiliation he believed inevitable, unaware that he had stepped into a world where dignity was valued above life itself. Nantan finally rose, the firelight painting deep shadows across his face, each line a story of battles survived and losses endured. He spoke slowly, his voice calm but heavy with meaning, reminding the rancher that among the Apache, a wife was not property, not currency, not something to be bought with horses or gold, but the heart of a family and the spirit of a man. As he spoke, younger warriors listened, learning once more how restraint could be a weapon sharper than rage. The rancher interrupted with a dismissive laugh, explaining that 1,000 horses could feed the tribe for years, could secure their future against encroaching settlers and soldiers, could buy peace. He spoke as though peace were something he owned and could distribute at will. Murmurs rippled through the circle, not of temptation, but of disbelief that any man could be so blind. Nantan's wife, Ashina, stood just beyond the firelight, her posture straight, her eyes unwavering, not a trace of fear on her face. She had heard every word, and though her heart pounded, her spirit did not bend. She knew that whatever decision was made tonight would echo through generations, and she trusted her people to choose honor over survival bought with shame. As the night deepened, Nantan called for counsel, ordering the rancher and his men to wait at the edge of camp, guarded but unharmed, because the Apache did not kill guests unless war had been declared. The warriors gathered in a tighter circle, voices low, intense, each man speaking not for himself, but for the ancestors, whose blood ran in his veins. Some argued that the rancher's offer revealed a threat greater than it seemed, that a man who believed he could buy an Apache woman would soon believe he could take Apache land by force. Others warned that rejecting the offer might provoke violence, that soldiers would follow and blood would be spilled regardless of their choice. Through it all, Ashina remained silent, her presence a reminder that this was not merely a political decision, but a deeply personal one. When Nantan finally spoke, his words cut through the debate like a sudden wind. They would not accept the offer, but they would not respond with immediate violence either. Instead, they would turn the rancher's arrogance against him, exposing his weakness to his own people and allies, because true victory was not always won on the battlefield. Before dawn, Nantan approached the rancher alone, his steps measured, his expression unreadable. He told him the tribe would consider the offer, but only if the rancher agreed to return at sunrise with proof of the horses, to show his sincerity. The rancher, confident and eager, agreed without hesitation, already boasting of how the story would spread, how men would envy him and tribes would fear him. He left the camp laughing, unaware that he had just been led exactly where the Apache wanted him. As the first light crept over the horizon, warriors prepared, not for surrender, but for revelation. Messengers were sent to neighboring tribes, not to ask for help, but to witness what would unfold. because shame, when seen by many, was a punishment more enduring than death. Ashina met Nantan's gaze as the sun rose, and in that look passed a lifetime of trust, courage, and shared resolve. Whatever happened next, their people would remember this day as the moment they chose who they truly were. And as the dust of approaching hooves began to rise on the horizon, the camp stood ready, not with drawn weapons, but with unbreakable unity, knowing that some battles are won not by spilling blood, but by standing firm when the world expects you to bow. If this story is gripping you, if you feel the tension, the pride, and the unspoken storm building in the dawn, subscribe to the channel now, because Chapter 2 will reveal how the rancher's confidence turns into disbelief, how the Apache delivered justice without losing their soul, and how one arrogant offer changes everything forever. The sound of hooves rolled across the plains like distant thunder, growing heavier with each passing breath. And when the rancher finally appeared at the edge of the Apache camp, he did so not as a conqueror, but as a man drunk on his own confidence. Behind him stretched a long, arrogant line of horses, strong, shining, restless, exactly 1,000, driven hard through the night to prove his wealth and his will. He expected awe. He expected bargaining. What he did not expect was the silence. The Apache camp stood still, warriors lined in calm formation, elders watching without expression, women and children present not in fear but in witness. This was no private negotiation anymore. This was judgment in the open air. Chief Nantan stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly as he thanked the rancher for honoring his word. Then with deliberate calm, he asked the rancher to repeat his offer loudly so that all might hear. Confused but amused, the rancher did exactly that, boasting again of 1,000 horses for one night, laughing as if history itself were bending to his desire. The laughter died quickly. Murmurs spread, not among the Apache, but among the rancher's own men, who suddenly understood the weight of what was being exposed. Nantan raised his hand, and messengers stepped aside, revealing envoys from neighboring tribes, settlers, and traders who had arrived before dawn. Witnesses, dozens of them, faces hardened as realization struck. The rancher's offer was no longer a secret insult. It was a public declaration of who he truly was. Ashina then stepped forward. Her presence silenced the camp completely. She spoke not with anger, but with strength, declaring that no number of horses could buy dignity, that no man who tried to purchase a woman's honor deserved respect from any people, white or Apache. Her words cut deeper than any blade. The rancher tried to speak, to reclaim control, but his voice failed him. Nantan finished what Ashina began, announcing that the Apache would accept the horses, not as payment, but as a fine for the insult delivered, and that the rancher would leave immediately, alive, humiliated, and remembered. The alternative, Nantan said quietly, would be war, and war would cost far more than horses. The rancher saw the truth then. He was outnumbered not by warriors, but by witnesses. To fight would brand him forever. To refuse would expose him as weak. With shaking hands, he ordered his men to release the horses. Dust rose as the herd was driven into Apache hands, not in triumph, but in justice. The rancher left without another word, his legend shattered, his power reduced to a warning whispered across the frontier. That day became a story told beside fires for generations, not of violence, but of restraint, unity, and pride. The Apache had won without spilling blood, and the world learned that honor cannot be bought. If you felt the power of this ending, if stories like this deserve to live on, subscribe to the channel now. More unforgettable stories of courage, culture, and consequence are coming, and you won't want to miss the next one.